hard time not disliking friends of mine who support Hillary. And
Wow.
I know that that's not a nice thing to say, and I really don't care, right?
Wow.
Because my political views represent the core of who I am, right? And so if you support Hillary and you think she's a better candidate, at least explain to me why, right? Explain to me in detail why you believe her policies are more progressive than Bernie's. Explain to me why you think her voting record is better than Bernie's. Explain to me why she would represent you as a working class millennial, okay, who has so much student loan debt you don't know what to do with your life. Explain to me why she would be a better candidate for you. Please, please do it.
No,
right?
no,
and they can't do it.
I totally disagree with you, Anna, and I'll tell you why. Not because you're wrong on the policy, you're obviously massively right on the policy, but because they just don't know politics.
No, but here's...
They just don't know it.
Disagree, because I understand if they might be ignorant on some policy ideas, but I have friends that I have sat down with and had very detailed conversations. Look, I'm not here for a fucking hobby, okay? This is what I do for my career, okay? This is what I live for. So it's not like I'm reading some headlines and I'm like, hey, I want to engage in some political discourse. No. So I sit down and I explain to them in so many different ways. I had conversations about Hillary Clinton's support of private prisons, Hillary Clinton's support of for-profit colleges, Hillary's support of ridiculous foreign policy that has only perpetuated more war, detailed explanations for why she is not a good progressive candidate. And they reject that evidence. And so how is it possible for me to respect them after that?
No, I'll tell you a couple of reasons why.
I need to hear this too, because I feel exactly the same way.
You feel the same way.
It's very hard when people dismiss logic that you still have to retain respect for them. When people that you do respect and you consider to be on the right side of issues start to sound more like George Bush supporters than they do a Democrat, it's hard to maintain a relationship with those people. And the same kind of relationship you had, I can maintain a dispassionate relationship, but these are real relationships. And when someone is kind of like lets me down like that and shows that they can, at the flip of a switch, be the exact opposite of what I thought they were and argue like a Bush supporter instead of a Democrat, it makes it very, very difficult.
Well, you guys
and that's
are
why I
talking...
stay off Facebook.
No, but okay,
Oh, God, yeah.
I actually think you guys are making two slightly different arguments. So let me address it, okay? So first, Anna, when it comes to politics, everybody thinks they know what they're talking about. So the fact that we know the policies better just because of the nature of our job, they don't give us any credit for that. Like, so a mechanic would get credit for knowing cars better, right?
A doctor would get credit for knowing how to operate on a fucking heart, right? So how insulting would it be if I walked into a surgeon performing open heart surgery and I said, you know what? I think that artery needs some work.
Right.
No, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying my friends don't know what they're talking about. I'm saying that if they're unaware of the issues and I try to explain to them and provide evidence, we can disagree on political issues. And if they tell me, hey, you know what? I don't think student loan debt's really that big of an issue. I'm going to disagree with them, but at least that's not a priority for them and I can understand, right? Yeah. But when they say it is a priority for them and I explain to them in detail and provide evidence for why Bernie Sanders would be better on that policy and they just straight out give me the middle finger and tell me to fuck off.
They don't do that, though. They don't
Not
do that.
literally.
That's
it's
how you
metaphorically.
feel.
Yes.
That's how you feel.
Yes.
But again, it's like, politics is like sports. Like, I can bring you out all these stats on why Kobe's not as good as Jordan or whatever it is.
I could too.
He's not as good.
Right.
He's not as good.
Okay. All right. See?
Don't freak out.
But what will happen is people think they know sports just as well as any top commentator, any top analyst, and they think they know politics just as well as anyone because that's a thing that they get to have an opinion on. They don't get to have an opinion on quantum physics, right? Because you have to have a PhD in that. But hey, you don't get to tell me who I'm going to support politically. Yeah. Secondly, studies have borne out that people are super reluctant to change their opinion on politics, even when confronted by facts. By the way, not just conservatives, but also liberals.
And in fact, will strengthen now that they know that it's the wrong opinion, they will strengthen it. They'll believe it more strongly than they did before.
Right. So that is a phenomenon that you're battling against, even with your friends, even with quote-unquote reasonable people, because it affects all of us as human beings. Now,
which you can subvert that. You have to be very careful, use certain techniques, but you can persuade people of things politically. But it is not a fast thing, and it's not by winning an argument.
I'm not obsessed with. I'm not obsessed with being right. I'm really not, right? Like, I know for a fact that I will be open to any criticism of Bernie that's justified. Is he as strong and confident on foreign policy as Hillary is? No, he's not, but her decision-making was a disaster when it comes to foreign policy, right? I was open to the criticism about the gun laws, but the criticism he gets for the gun laws are ridiculous. Okay, do we go after gun manufacturers, or do we go against the lawmakers that pass these ridiculously lax laws that allow for mass shootings?
So, no, Anna, I really hope we're all open-minded. And, like, for example, in the debate, when he said, I'd let the banks figure out how to break themselves up, I didn't love that answer at all.
Neither did I.
Right. So there's certainly legitimate criticism of Bernie Sanders to make on different issues. But why they might not be moving, even if they were to get beyond the human phenomenon of not moving on politics when confronted by facts, even if they were to listen to you and be open-minded, is because most of the people make decisions on politics based on emotion, right? Now, a lot of that is conservative versus liberal, people who are pro-change and people who are more traditional. And I say that because I understand that. I used to be kind of conservative in some ways. Part of it is because I'm super nostalgic. I like the way it was back in the 1980s because I love the 1980s. I grew up in a nice suburb and it was lovely, right?
The clothing.
So it matters. All that stuff is ingrained in our head, okay? So you might be right on all the facts, and their gut is saying Hillary's right for me.
Yeah.
And the reason they might be saying that is not because of conservative versus liberal. It might be they think things are not so bad for me. And I know in my gut, and they would be right about this, that Hillary's going to be steady as we go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have friends, by the way, who would, get taxed significantly by Bernie Sanders. Right? So they think, no, I'm a liberal, but I'm not that liberal.
Okay.
And I would like to have Hillary Clinton go steady as we go.
But here's the thing about that, Cenk. I understand that, right? So if someone is in a wealthier position and they would rather go with Hillary, at least there's some logic behind it, right? But if you're one of my millennial friends who's drowning in student loan debt, can't afford more than $500 a month on rent, and you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to put food on your table with the next paycheck you get, I question why you're making the decision you're making. Is it because you just read a few superficial headlines? Is it because you want to vote for her because you want a female president? What is it? What is it? Please explain it to me.
What you just did was you gave rational reasons to
Yes.
support Hillary Rodham Clinton. What we're talking about is the overwhelming amount of reasons people give, which is the irrational ones or irrational. Sometimes it's irrational if it's online.
Flip-flops.
But that's what I'm talking. It's about the crazy.
So I want to address that because I think a lot of the guys you're debating with do know politics a little bit more. Like, so your friends might be in different professions, Anna. A lot of the guys you know are maybe they're comics.
Yeah.
And so they know what's going on because comics got to make jokes about what's going on in the news, right? And so they're pretty familiar. I think those guys are a different category, and you're right to be pissed at them.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, do you see what I sanctioned it? but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because so when I talk to progressive commentators, or I argue back and forth with them, and people I like a lot in the past, right? And I still like them, and we're going to get over it and stuff. But as I see them say things are sexist when they know for a fucking fact it ain't sexist, right? And they make charges they know for a fact aren't true. It's the one thing if a friend of mine who's not knee-deep in politics makes a charge that he just heard that somewhere. He heard it on TV. That's, we'll straighten that out eventually, right? But if someone kind of knows but is playing dirty pool, that's different.
Okay, can I?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my addition to the being depressed, and we're going to be depressed for a long time. I jokingly said this under my breath to Jimmy earlier. So one of our jobs, one of the points of TYT is to be critical, not just to be critical of the Republican president. Oh shit, it's a Democratic president, so we just got to hold him on our shoulders for 8 years. That's not the point of this organization. And we saw, I wasn't here in the beginning, but we saw when Obama got elected and he started to do some questionable stuff, you got a lot of shit for criticizing him because you're supposed to just toe the line. And why are you undercutting the president? Well, we're about to get 10 times worse than that because the strategy that they've used that you just alluded to throughout the primaries, they are going to hold on to that for the next 8 years. We are going to have to criticize Hillary Clinton when she does the wrong thing, and we're going to be called sexist almost every time. It doesn't matter what the issue is, if it's about fracking, if it's about campaign finance reform, if it's about our hawkishness, we're going to be sexist, and there's going to be editorials in the Huffington Post, and we're going to be held up as these incredibly sexist people because we have the temerity to hold to account the president that is supposed to represent us.
Well, look, the sexism charges. Okay, here's how I feel about them. Okay, I don't give a fuck what you think. Okay, because I already know you're playing dirty pool. So if you made a legitimate charge and say, "Hey, Cenk, you see how you phrase that's an issue," I'd go, "Oh my God, you're right. I'm sorry, I didn't think about that. That's such a great point, and we'll fix that going forward, right?" But if I know that you were throwing out a sexism charge willy-nilly just to put a hatchet on the most liberal senator of our lifetime, that you knew for a fact was the least sexist guy there is. And I know you played that kind of dirty pool, right?
Yep.
And then you're going to turn around and tell me, "Oh, now you better bow your head. Otherwise, wait. Otherwise, I'll smear you as a sexist." Come at it. Come and get a piece, motherfucker. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. Was that sexist?
Let me add to that.
I mean, I don't
actually.
want, because we mentioned fucking mothers. I don't know, maybe that was sexist. Maybe they'll talk about how that was sexist.
I'm sure
Fuck
they
you,
will.
and the horse you rode in on.
No,
Now,
Well,
you
that's
see what I'm
against
saying?
horses.
So when we're talking about friends and people who don't know politics, as you can tell, I'm very open and soft and all that. We're talking about people who know politics, and you're going to try to pull that bullshit on us? No. That's a different conversation.
And let me add to that, okay? So Hillary supporters will constantly talk about what a strong woman she is. She's strong, successful. She's a strong woman. I'll give them that.
She can
But you
bench the-
you can't say that and then simultaneously treat her like she's this delicate flower and like
Fabergé egg.
no one can ever criticize her because if you do, that's sexist. No, here's the thing. If she's going to be the leader of this country, that's what she's going to get. She's going to get criticized and she's going to get critiqued like every other president that we've had. And if she can't handle that and you start throwing out charges of sexism, well, you're actually doing women a huge disservice.
And by the way, they screwed all Democrats, right? Because now Trump is going to be actually sexist. He's already sexist to every woman there is out there. And he's going to be horrifically sexist to Hillary Clinton. But they're going to say, "Hey, you just said that about Bernie Sanders. So we don't believe you at all. You just said it about the least sexist guy in the country. So when you say it about Donald Trump, you ruined it. Now we don't believe it, and Trump's going to get a free pass." Thanks a lot, all you fucking hacks.